cool. I just want to get right into it if if our time's going to be limited, which it is.
Yes. The last thing I heard, why did I offer to come on your show? You have an easy answer. You have an interest in procabulary.
Mm,
Simple as that. That's it.
yeah.
Cool. I don't care if you have an audience of 3 Girl Scouts or 300,000 raving fans. It's clear.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, man. As soon as it sounds creepy to say, but I've been following your journey for the last, I'd say, couple years, ever since I first learned about procabulary. And yeah, language, it seems to me that it's such a powerful avenue for growth, specifically communication. And so I've become more interested in this the last couple of years.
Hmm.
And yeah, discovering your work was it was a big shift for me personally. And yeah, it seems like for you've been on this journey for a long time. And I'm wanting to know because it seems like or at least from my perspective, it seems like you're tuning into language. You're sensitizing yourself to it. So
Mm.
you're bringing your senses into language, and you're developing a greater sensitivity toward it. And so if you don't mind explaining, I guess to the audience and to me, the importance of sensitivity to language and why this, I guess for you, your experience with this, why is this either a blessing and a curse at times?
That's a good question. The observation of language and how it influences us is it's more than a passion of mine, it's a fascination of mine.
Mm,
I find it absolutely fascinating that I can talk myself out of opportunity.
mm,
I find it fascinating that I can talk myself into opportunity. I find it absolutely fascinating I can talk myself into a bad mood. I find it fascinating I can talk myself into a good mood. I find it fascinating that I can construct words in a certain way for me to interpret an experience as negative and detrimental and wrap a whole bunch of meaning around
mm,
it and then watch that play out in how I act and how I relate externally, the things that I do, the choices that I make, and and also how language influences our imagination and our feelings and emotions, our physiology, and how we breathe. This is stuff we are very rarely taught in school.
mm.
I mention this. I bring it up frequently on podcasts and conversations and presentations. I have asked now thousands of people, all from all over the place, to raise your hand if you had any education about how your language influences your your identity.
Mm,
And sometimes I have to explain that a little bit. Well, what's my identity? The conversation that you have with yourself about yourself. Raise your hand if you had any education about how to use your language so it works for you. So you build up a competent and confident and solid, robust, centered, grounded, focused self image.
mm,
Raise your hand if you've had any training on how to use your language to build up um, uh, uh, confidence in yourself and in what you're doing. Very rarely do people raise their hands on that. And I know for me, the number's three. Out of thousands of people I've asked, three people have raised their hand, and I was not one of them. I have a degree in education. Okay, I came up through the public schools. And on either side of that coin, I didn't have one course, class, or conversation on how my language influences me in those ways, which is uh, perpetual. It's relentless. It's usually the first thing people do when they awake, awaken in the morning, is they hear their own voice in their head. That's how they know they're awake. And usually it's the very last thing that they hear before they go to sleep.
Mm,
It's relentless. The conversation in our head is relentless. And if we lose control over that mechanism, over that story, and we use certain words repeatedly, and we dig you know neurological networks, we forge neurological networks in our brain, we rep these stories out, and we emotionalize over them repeatedly, we eventually get addicted to them.
mm.
Okay, and that goes for better or for worse. You probably know someone who life throws them a curveball and they just seem to bounce back quick. You know anybody like that?
Yeah, I do actually.
Cool. How much do you enjoy spending time with them?
Very much so.
Why?
Yeah, I prefer it.
Prefer it? Sure.
Why is that? I guess I tend to yeah, I tend to want to be around energy that I feel is benefiting my life. And yeah, I want to sorry, it's telling me my okay. Are you still with me, Mark?
I'm with you. Yes, you did
Cool.
freeze for a hot second, and that's fine. Most
Yep.
people want to feel good.
Yeah.
You know? Most people
Okay.
want to feel okay about themselves. Most people want to better themselves most of the time in most areas of their life. Most people fall into that category. I actually opened 3 years of seminars. Hey, everybody, my name is Mark Engel. Thanks for coming. How do you want to feel? Write it down right now. And everybody writes down the same thing, some semblance of good, some semblance of confident, comfortable, in their own skin. Very few people set out to feel like shit. Okay.
Mhm.
um and then on the other side of that conversation, you probably know someone or several someones who life throws them a curveball and they just spin out. They
Mm.
spin out, they recover poorly. It takes them a long time. They chew on that bone. Okay. They keep talking about it. They're talking about it months later, whether it's a breakup or some financial thing or an injury. I used to be that guy. Okay.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say I've been there. I'm
yeah,
still in a lot of ways.
all good. All
Mhm.
good. It's a process. Our identity is an ongoing, fluid, flexible process. The current Webster's definition of identity is the fact of being who or what a person is. It's very easy to dispel, which means to cast out, dispel that idea. You see yourself differently than you did when you were five, and so do I, and so does everybody that's listening to this. So our identity is not, it's not a fact. It's not static. It's not stuck, even though we can convince ourselves of that. Oh, that's just the way I am.
Mm.
Or maybe that's just the way I've been uh, thinking about things.
Right.
We need it behooves the person that wants to be more competent and influential and creative and productive in their life to become more process oriented with the story that they tell themselves about themselves, as opposed to being passive, which is a
Mhm.
horrible place to live. Life runs you over. The story just runs you over. It lays wheels on your, it lays some wheel on your head. It pours a Slurpee out of the window just to make sure it's, some insult to injury. And then it comes back, later on in the day to do the
Mhm.
exact same thing. And it comes to down back to the education conversation. The three people that raise their hands, that yes, I did have some education about how to use my language to support me in my journey. Okay. I did have some education about how to uh, uh, communicate with other people, so we're on the same page and we can work well together.
Mm.
And those three people went to private schools. They went to actually one went to Montessori school, one went to a Waldorf school, one went to a Steiner school. which is in comparison to the public school system, which again I was brought up in, uh, um, they just run circles around it. It's
Mm.
not even a contest. It's not even close to a contest. They're engineering people,
Yeah.
and public school. That's the plantation mentality, in
Mm.
my opinion. It's a real thing to unlearn that.
Mhm.
It is. And one of the fastest ways that we can unlearn, which means to undo the effect of something, a story, is to focus on the words that we're using on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Okay, there's a lot of talk about mindset. Mindset is a great thing to talk about, and when someone combines the global conversation of mindset
Mm.
with the uber important part of the conversation about what specific words take us in different directions in the conversation, then we have something that's practical, as in we can practice it. It's very hard for me to practice at that granular level a just be more positive attitude when
Mm.
life puts the pressure on. Okay, you just get over it. Has anyone ever gotten over something because someone told them to just get over it? I don't think so. I really don't.
Highly
I really don't.
doubtful. Mhm.
How about this one? A lot of adjusting here. You just need to believe in yourself more.
Mm.
Okay. Has anyone ever believed in themselves more because someone said you just need to believe in yourself more? That doesn't work. We start to break it down, like we have to address the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves from a
Mm.
word level, and we have in Procabulary. We've gamified it, truth be told, and people have a good time unraveling their issues and their hangups because one, they know, oh, there's a game to be played and I can take care of this stuff. And here's how. Let me, if I use less of these words, and we can get into the specifics if you want, if I use less of these words, I create less drama,
Mm.
less conflict, less stress, less doubt, less fear, less insecurity, less anxiety in my life. Yes, please, I'll take 3 separate helpings of that. Most people want that in their life because they know what they know what the opposite is. Oh, clarity, focus, confidence, momentum, productivity, connection, collaboration, laughter, joy, community. Yeah, I'll take more of that.
Mm. So, Mark, it seems to me that at the foundation of this teaching, and really of all teachings, is, or at least the ones that attempt to solve the problem of living a happier life, it, at the fundamental level, it comes down to addressing the mind and the way the mind and body operate. And so for me personally, I've experienced this with words and with language, just as you're explaining that words and language can ease the mind and can reduce friction and improve fluidity or whatever it might be, achieve goals. If that is what your mind desires, it can do this through words. And I'm also wondering what other, because I do want to stay on, we can come back to words and
Sure.
vocabulary because I know this is very important and this is a lot of what I want to discuss with you. And I also want to discuss what other um, mechanisms or tools have you been using in your life to calm the mind or to achieve what it is that you want to achieve, or where have you found happiness in your life?
I'm a big fan of breathing well.
Mm.
When someone goes from, in the vocabulary system, there's a subset of the English language. It's called conflict language. And we've broken it down into 3 components. And these are the components that this is the style of storytelling. So I don't know what the mind is. I have no clue.
Mm.
That's way over my head, way above my pay grade. I know what the story is. I know what a story is. Okay.
Mm.
The mind that's just too vast for me to understand, and I know that. I can track a story though. I can track the words. Okay. Uh, there is a style of storytelling that if I employ it, as I previously mentioned, I create all the things that I want to avoid, whether I want to avoid them or not. And one of the sinister byproducts of that is that I place myself in a sympathetic nervous system response state or a stressed state. Okay. And I trap my breathing in my upper chest. Most people are horrible breathers, terrible breathers. Okay. They're chest breathers. After, 30, 40,000 micro stresses due to the style of storytelling they're telling themselves and other people, they and then the breath gets trapped up here and then it's home.
Mm.
Okay. If you ever watch a baby breathe, they breathe abdominally. That's where we're supposed to breathe. We're supposed to upregulate, get a job done, and then get out. Okay. Bad things happen when people stay in prolonged stressed states. Any MD will tell you that. Now, why are people jammed in these upregulated states? Story. That's my layman's opinion. Okay. And so yes, change the story. And as we go out of these, and I'm still on track with your question, as we get out of these conflict oriented stories and into a different kind of storytelling using what we call arc language, and we cut the level of drama and decrease the level of psychological and emotional inflammation that we've got going on, the breathing descends back down into the abdomen.
Mm.
And that is a wonderful place to live. Okay. Whether you're a mother and you're raising children, whether you are in sales, whether you are a professional speaker, whether you like to work out and get in fluid states during your workout routines. If you like feeling comfortable in your own skin, you're going to have a real hard time doing that if you're breathing in your chest constantly. And so to answer one of my answers to your question, what do I like to do to quiet my mind outside of the language game, is to make sure that I'm breathing well.
Mm.
Make sure that I'm breathing well in my abdomen. That's huge. I like to keep myself in a centered, uh, um, solid state.
Yeah.
And another thing that I am a huge fan of, I met my college girlfriend's father's fifth grade teacher once upon a time. She was 83 years old.
Mm.
She had a handshake stronger than mine. She was 5'1". I was like, what's going on here? And she was a walker. She walked 5 miles a day. She was lean. She was sharp as tacks. She was strong. And that was the first time I paid attention to people that walk. I'm like, okay. And over the years, that was about 20 years ago. Anytime I find someone over the age of 75 that is rocking it, I ask
Mm.
them, what do they do? You know what they say every single time? Walk.
Mm.
They're walkers. We're meant to walk. People are so underwalked. It's crazy. One of my friends has a kettlebell gym in Richmond, Virginia, and he's been in that game a long time. And shout out to Will Parker and Gear Your Garage. And he said that he's watching a perpetuation of decreased connection, mind body connection with kids that
Mm.
are coming in his gym. And we talked about it, and I said, you know what I think it is? Some people say, well, it's the video games. Well, it's what about the other side of the coin? It's not. It's the lack of walking, because they're both. It's the same. That's the same thing. If you're playing
Mm.
video games, you're not walking, and if you're walking, you're not playing video games. We're supposed to walk. We're supposed to walk a lot. The
Mm.
first, I walk every single morning. Once I connected these two dots that, oh, wait a minute, the strongest older people that I meet that are super sharp and they look good and they seem to be enjoying themselves. They're all walkers. Okay, that's all I had to see. I'm going
Yeah.
to start walking. And that was 4.5 years ago. And I've walked damn near every morning since. It's just, it is habit. I'm out the door in 7 minutes.
Mm.
I get up. It makes zero sense to me, man, to get up and go and sit down, to get up out of bed and go sit down. Why would I do that? Especially when if I'm sitting down, I'm probably watching a screen. That makes no sense to me. And I used to do it. Just didn't think about it. It's like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, that's what we do. No, that's what some people do. I'm doing something different. And what that does is it allows me to set myself in a certain position, so to speak. Posture is important. Posture is super important when you walk into a room. Your clothes, your appearance, your posture, people judge that real quick.
Mhm.
Posture is super important if you want to practice feeling good about yourself. It's
Mm.
real hard for me to feel awesome about myself if I hang out here for a couple hours. Okay. It's
Yeah, I can
also it's
see that.
also it's also hard for me to feel like crap about myself if my shoulders are back and I'm breathing well. Okay, so let me set this whole thing in motion at the beginning of my day. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go walk and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to focus my mind, whatever that thing is,
Mhm.
with my language. I'm going to make sure I'm telling myself at least a decent story about myself and the day ahead of me. And I'm going to put my posture in place and I'm going to come back home and have a cup of coffee and I'm going to get to
Yeah.
it. It's a setup. It's a setup. And then what I'm doing right there is I'm raising my psychological and emotional immunity to the day.
Mhm.
Okay, because I know how I want to run my day,
Mhm.
and I know me having knee jerk reactions to God knows what, not that much fun, man.
Mhm.
So big fan of the story, big fan of walking, big fan of breathing. And then there's other things. I very much enjoy hanging out with people that are upbeat and productive.
Mhm.
And I'm quick to get out of a scene when people are you know not that.
Mhm.
So that's a big one. That's a real big one. Um, those are my answers.
Nice. Yeah, I really like those, Mark. Thank you for sharing that first off. And getting to the story, um, because this does seem to be your primary focus and your interest. And um, yeah, you're just spreading such a beautiful message around the importance of words and story. What do you see moving into the future as the future of story? How do you envision, and this is just going to be a multiple part question that feel
Sure,
free to choose whatever you'd like.
sure.
What do you envision is the future of story? Do we need a new story to connect humanity? And what would that story look like that might bring us together for once? Um, yeah, we'll go with that.
That's a good question. I know where I'm going,
Hmm.
and I know where some people want to go with their story, and I will support those people that want to go there with their story, and that places ownership of their story. That place is where they're talking to themselves instead of listening to themselves. They're talking to themselves instead of listening to other people. it's a world of individual redemption, individual freedom. I'm not much on the group think.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, nor do I see us needing to be united under one banner.
Hmm.
Okay. I like, I look at, are you familiar with the microbiome?
I am.
Okay. So there's a lot of different, I can make it even simpler than that. We have different organs for a reason. We've all got different jobs. Okay. If we only had, if we just had, everything was a liver. Okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work. Okay. We need the liver though. We need the
Hmm.
spleen. We need the pancreas. We need the lungs. We need the small intestines. We need the large intestines. At some point in time, we needed the appendix. Might need it again. Who knows?
Hmm.
Um, and and I see a getting everybody on the same page about something. I think that's dangerous
Mm.
because I see that coming for humanity. There's a couple ways this thing could go. I see that coming for humanity only through force, as in a technocracy.
Mm.
When I'm texting some of my friends and I want to use spicy language,
Hmm.
I'll have ducking spelled for me 3 times before it allows me to put an F in there. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh-huh. Mm.
what if certain ways of thinking were made illegal? Okay. And I wasn't allowed to text those kinds of ideas. The danger in that, we can take this back to the microbiome. When someone, have you heard of the issue? We need to be offended.
Mm.
We need to have some offensive moments, because if someone has never been offended, has been protected and coddled their whole life, and then someone says something to them, they crumble. It's like someone who has a very low immunity. They've
Mm.
never been they've never had their immune system has never had to work. It's like, have you heard of the
Mm.
people that use the hand sanitizer over and over and over again?
Yeah.
They get sick a lot. I wonder why that is. Okay, because they're taking out, people need some struggle.
Mm.
And when we are, to use Joe Rogan's terminology, nerfing the world, when we're nerfing our language, there's a professor, I forget who it was, doesn't matter. It's the general conversation that I find important to pay attention to. Uh, the word geek and nerd need to be made illegal. I read that yesterday.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the use of them is violence.
Mm.
Okay. I was working with someone recently, a client who was bullied,
Hmm.
and we went through there. She wrote down some stories that it was even a challenge for her to get them on paper. And we got the words down and we went through a process of opening up the story, of having her tell the story and working her breath down into her abdomen, getting her out of this perpetual stressed state in context to these experiences. And when someone does that, they take out the emotional glue that has been holding their perspective on that situation in that same way, because they're not the same thing. The experience and my story about the experience are two different things.
Mm.
And as long as I'm using the same words in the same way that I used in the heat of the moment to tell myself a story about what's happening, it doesn't matter if it's the day after or 20 years later, I'm going to get the same result because 2 + 2 = 4. So we get the story written down. She verbalizes the story. She verbalizes the story again at 70% speed. So she's down regulating in context to the story. And then she, at each sentence, this might sound strange to people. I don't know, maybe it makes perfect sense. She started putting in breath, so she'd make a sentence, breathe down into her abdomen, make another sentence, breathe down into her abdomen. So she's opening herself up physiologically and neurologically. And what it does is it, quote unquote, gives her breathing room. And we're still on the same question of where I see this whole thing going.
Mm-hmm.
Because when someone's in a stressed state and their breathing is trapped in their chest, the story is big and scary and it's in their face. And as the breathing descends down into their abdomen, they give themselves breathing room, literally. The story moves away and then they can see other things, as opposed to it just occupying the entirety of their mental real estate. And this went in a matter of 40 minutes. This whole monster of an experience, it was several experiences, went from being a problem to a strength. So when children, you've heard of helicopter parents. Have you heard of that? Or they're just, the parents are just waiting
hovering.
they're hovering. You know what the new one is? Lawnmower parents, because they're seriously this close on top of everything. They don't want a bump, a bruise, a fight in the schoolyard. No trauma, no adversity, no nothing, no stress at all. We're just going to make sure that we're going to protect everybody forever. Hey man, we are playing with fire. We are playing with absolute fire with that. The words have to be made available to people. We have to be able to say this stuff. Okay?
Yes.
Even when it stings. Otherwise, the alternative is scary. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Richmond, Virginia is a progressive city. Okay. It wasn't when I was in high school. It was the most dangerous city in the country in high school. When I was in high school, my junior year of high school, was the murder capital per capita of the United States. It looked like Gotham City down there. It was blown out and seriously dangerous. The VCU Rams won. They got into the Sweet 16 and the Final Four one year, and everybody got this, all up on Richmond, Virginia, and a lot of money came in, and now the city is top 10 cities to live in the United States every year, for some really cool reasons. There's a lot of artists there. It's a great food scene, cycling scene, fitness scene. Go to Scott's Addition. There are breweries and distilleries all over the place. The place is hopping now. So I go into a coffee shop off of Cary Street, downtown. Great street. And I go in and I go to get a cup of coffee. And behind the counter is a 240-pound man, broad shoulders, muscular, in a very small pink spaghetti strap sundress at the counter. Okay, at the counter. I'd like a latte, please. Okay. I give him a 20. He gives me some change. I go, thanks, dude. And he goes, pardon me. I'm a ma'am. So, okay. Came back, got my latte. I said, thank you, ma'am. On the way out, the guy smiled. Fine. That guy wants to be called ma'am? Fine. Now, with certain legislation in place, he could have called the police on me, and I could have been arrested for not using the proper pronoun. That's scary. Yeah. And that's happening. That's happening. Have you followed Jordan Peterson's work at all?
Yeah, I've been following Jordan Peterson for the last couple of years.
Yeah. That.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah,
Anybody?
it's very, sorry, what were you
Go
going to say?
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very interesting what's going on right now. And I think my question came from a place of wanting everyone to get along. And yeah, now I'm questioning that idea.
Yeah,
And
good.
I
Question it. It comes from a naive place.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a difference between getting along and everyone having the same views.
Yeah.
So,
And everyone being forced to have the same views, because
mm,
that's where that conversation goes.
mm,
I want you to have different views than me,
mm.
just for the fact that just so I can have the freedom to have different views than you,
Why do you think that people want other people to share the exact same views that they have?
because they're stressed.
Mm,
That's some of it. You know, I want you to feel okay, so I feel okay.
mm,
Wait a minute. Why am I? That's codependency. How about I just feel okay on my own first and leave you alone? Why do I need that from you?
mm,
Let's shrink it down to relationships. Let's take the whole world out of the conversation, because that is super complex. You know, codependency in relationships. You know, I remember this in high school. I had a girlfriend, super good looking, and I kept asking her. I'd ask her all the time. Well, not all the time, several times a day. Everything okay? Everything all right?
mm,
It got to a point where it annoyed her, and for good reason. And you know why I was asking her that? Because I wasn't okay.
mm,
I did not feel comfortable in the relationship. I was challenged in the relationship. I was insecure in the relationship. Everything all right? Everything okay? You okay? You okay? Not a fun place to live. And so I've got that story going on. And then I'm like, okay, well, I know what the world needs. No,
mm,
no, no, no. That's bad. That's some bad math right there.
mhm,
It's a challenge enough to take care of our own personal stories.
mm,
And interestingly enough, when we begin to unravel our own stuff and we stay in that, you know, I'm an unraveler of my own stuff kind of game, and our breathing gets a little bit better, and we're you know, a little easier on ourselves and a little more productive. We do that over, you know, a couple years. Uh, like I said, interesting things start to happen. Okay,
mm,
that's why we're sitting here. Because once upon a time, I looked at my life and I said, I'm in deep shit.
mm,
If I keep playing this story out, which is I'm a victim. I was a championship kickboxer in college. I moved over to Thailand, wanted to be a professional fighter. Ended up having my second knee surgery over there shortly after I arrived. 6 months after I arrived, I was on the operating table, devastated. And I use that as proof that there's something wrong with me and I was doomed to fail and this was never going to work because there's something wrong with me. That whole atelophobia thing, the fear of not being good enough, just perched on my shoulder. I
mm,
didn't laugh for a whole year. And eventually I'm like, oh, I'm in it. I can keep doing this for God knows how long. I looked down that road, saw a bitter, twisted old man, waste of talent. Didn't know what that talent was. It was just like anything but that.
mhm,
And so it was you know, it's a long game play. Learned to uh, talk differently to myself, and I learned to talk differently to other people. And um, in that process, two companies have been formed. I've co-founded both of them. Procabulary for the general audience and Lifted for the fitness industry. I've met thousands of amazing, interesting people. I've given over 500 professional talks. I've given a TEDx talk on identity. Been interviewed on over 100 podcasts. I'm now coaching people on public speaking. I've coached over 5,000 individual people. We are now certifying coaches. I'm the head coach. I certify coaches on this stuff now.
Mm.
And that all happened because I changed the conversation I was having with myself about myself, and I kept it changed. It goes up and down from time. It's a general trajectory. And there's nothing special about me. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And people want to know how to do this stuff because they're tired of getting their asses kicked by their story. It's boring. It's so boring.
Mm.
And some people are over it. So those people that are over it, come on over. The water's warm. Let's drink some coffee and talk about all of it.
Mm.
Let's liberate ourselves from ourself, as opposed to enlisting some other individual or group or government body to do it for us.
Mm.
That's more codependency. That's more victim mentality. By definition, the definition of the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. That's a verbatim definition of the victim mentality. The second sentence is very revealing. The victim mentality depends, as in it has to have a habitual thought process. Habitual accurately implies duration and addiction. And that habitual thought process that the victim mentality has to have is conflict language in the procabulary system. And people knowing that they use these words sparingly, because guess what happens when you do? People like knowing that stuff. It gives them a chance. Otherwise, you're just fingers crossed. Hopefully I'll be nice to myself today. I'm not going with that strategy. No thanks. I'm driving this bus. I'm going to talk to myself a certain way as opposed to listening to myself in a certain way.
Mm.
And I have no idea how things are going to play out globally or nationally. What I do know is that certifying coaches in this stuff is cool, and giving talks is cool. And there's an audience, there's an appetite for this. Watching someone go from being locked up about a certain story to letting that stuff go and having their whole imagination open up to possibilities, solution-oriented language as opposed to problem-oriented language, it's magical. It's, by definition, the definition of magic is the ability to apparently alter the course of events using supernatural forces. It's not the ability to do it, it's the apparent ability to do it. One man's magic is another man's technology. Supernatural is a null word. Robert N. Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land. We're playing with some stuff that I don't understand. I do not understand the mind. I don't understand the imagination. What is the imagination? I've never met anyone that can tell me. We're living in two worlds. We're hallucinating a story in our mind, and then we're acting it out in reality. Or we've got an external story and an internal story. Most people have no idea how to use their language to curate the internal story.
Mm.
Hence, outside looks like it looks and feels like it feels. Rudolf Steiner, back to that, he has a spooky, and this is not, I'm staying out of religion, period. I don't even know there's so much I'll never understand.
Mm-hmm.
He said the definition of a Luciferian force is anything that seeks to constrict or control.
Mm.
And if I'm telling myself a story about myself that puts a ton of pressure on me and keeps it there, and it's scary, and my breathe, and I'm depressed. Look at the word, depression, D-E, press, P-R-E-S-S, depress, on, downward pressure on me, and my breathing is all locked up, then for Rudolf Steiner, that's a Luciferian force. And you know what? Whether it's a Luciferian force or not, it feels like something's got me. by the
mm,
short and curlies. No thanks.
mm,
No thanks. I don't want to live that way. I've already lived that way. Okay, wonderful. And I sure as hell don't want to gift that to the next generation, because our language is an inheritance. We inherit our parents' stories
mm,
and the language that they use to create them.
mm.
We get more
Wow.
from our parents than their eye color.
Wow. Yeah. That's fascinating, man. Yeah. So, Mark, when people, your clients come to you and they have these beliefs or stories that are decompressing them and all this weight that's on them,
Mhm.
do they, is it a mix or what is the breakdown of the stories that they're typically telling themselves? Is it one of limiting beliefs in themselves, or is it a victim mentality to the external world?
Both. It's flavors of both.
Hmm.
So um, get a little bit techie in the conversation, which is fun. You know, we've contextualized, we've added context to the conversation, so we can go in here and it'll make some sense or a lot of sense to your audience, depending on their proclivities.
Mm-hmm.
There are three pillars of conflict language, and this conflict procabulary came out of my observation, thousands of individual coaching sessions, and then my business partner coming in and looking at the the manifesto that I had written. And he
Mm.
goes, okay, cool. This is legit. Here's vocabulary. Um, there were styles of storytelling that people were were using to stress themselves out. Okay, one of them. So, have you ever met someone who's a warrior? WORRY.
A
What's life
worry.
like?
Uh,
Yeah, not a warrior, a worrier. What's
uh,
life like for them?
um, let's see. It feels, I'm sure it feels heavy. It feels, um, yeah, just trapped. They might feel trapped.
What kind of pictures are they making? Things working out?
Unpleasant pictures.
Yeah. Things going well? Everybody
Mm,
doing okay? No, the
mm,
exact opposite.
mm,
Worriers relentlessly stare at worst case scenarios.
mm.
My grandmother was an Olympic gold medal warrior. Oh, yeah. And she'd tell us it was weird.
Mhm.
Oh, I worry so much about you. She'd say it to me. She'd say it to my sister, my parents. And then when I got old enough to start connecting dots, I'm like, man, this is just strange. Because
Mm,
she'd say this stuff and then expect us to be grateful for it.
mm.
The martyr mentality. Oh, you're making tons of mental pictures and little videos of me and everybody else going down in flames, and I should thank you for this? Oh, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Great family dynamic there. Way to set us up for
Oh
success.
man.
No. It's spooky when we start to unpack, to use a common parlance, unpack some of this stuff. Warriors use negations a lot. Negation keywords: can't, don't, isn't, not, haven't, hasn't, won't, shouldn't. So when I say I can't keep making all these mistakes,
Mm.
exactly. What kind of picture do you make?
One of mistakes.
One of mistakes. When I say, um, I'm not going to go out and binge drink tomorrow night. What did I just make a
I
picture
think
of?
about binge drinking.
I think
It's
about
how the
binge
mind
drinking.
works.
It's
Yeah.
how the mind works. When I say, we shouldn't argue so much,
Hmm.
what do I get? A picture of us arguing. Whoops. The first thing my driving teacher said when I got in the car, I was 15 and 3/4 years old. I'm still talking about this. The first thing he said when I got in the car is, look where you want to go because you're probably going to go there. He said, there's
Mm.
a reason the windshield is this big and the rear view mirror is this big.
Mm.
And when someone uses can'ts and won'ts and shouldn'ts, and I don't want to, I don't want them to, keep taking advantage of us. And it's they did the opposite. They're staring in the rear view mirror.
Mm.
I can't keep living like this. That's one style, 1 out of 3. Now
Hmm.
we have indecision. Do you like prolonged bouts of indecision?
Do I like it? No, I
Yeah.
dislike that.
Why? Why? That's so weird to say. What's so strange is you don't love it. Why not?
Mm. Prolonged bouts of indecision.
Because it
Well,
hurts. It's stressful. It messes with your digestion,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's horrible. There's a style to that. There are words that facilitate that. It's called
Mm.
soft talk. I guess. I think. Maybe. Sort of. Perhaps. Almost like. Did I say kinda? Hopefully. One day. Try. Maybe. Maybe I'll sign up for the gym next week.
Mm.
What's the likelihood of me doing that? I think I should spend more time with the kids. Oh, goody, goody, goody. I can say that as long as as much as I want, and I'll just keep that. I'll keep putting that decision off until however long. Because if I take out the think, I should spend more time with the kids. Now I got to make a choice. Now I have to
Mm.
change. I have to make a change to my behavior, and I don't like that. Maybe I'm procrastinating. This game is hardcore.
Hmm.
This game is hardcore, and
Yeah,
it's
it is.
super,
Yeah, it is.
super valuable. It's the
Hmm.
exit. It's the exit. If you are stuck in some area of your life, there's a story that you're participating in, and that's involved in that at some
Mm.
level. Which gets us into projections. So the third way
Mm.
of we call this is where this is where the venom comes in.
Yeah.
A client came in, sat down, started telling me about her uh, marriage and subsequent divorce. It happened 4 years ago. She's still pissed. He made me think we needed to get married. Cool. Write that down. What do you mean? That sentence right there. Yeah. He made me think we needed to get married. Things get real when people write down their words.
Mm.
Real. Writes it down. He made me think we needed to get married for a variety of reasons. Someone's actually listening to me. Uh-oh. When you say that, what happens? Well, how do you feel? Well, I'm pissed. Okay. What does the picture look like? And she describes it. He's taking advantage of her. Does anybody like getting taken advantage of?
Mm.
No, that's not fun. Okay, that creates stress. Again, back to the sympathetic nervous system response state. And as a side note, I have to say this. Okay, so people take what I'm saying the right way. Is that crazy, insane, horrible things happen to people? Okay, challenges, injuries, deaths of children, attacks, abuses, trees falling on their cat. I mean, all kinds of stuff happens. this is, and if someone likes the story that they're telling themselves about what happened, then please keep it. Okay. If someone wants to change the story that they're telling them about themselves,
Mm.
then they should have that right. They should have that ability. They should have that skill. They should have the
Yeah.
understanding of how to do that, or have access to someone that can help them do that.
Mm.
Okay. Because back to this whole thing. Most of the time, it's not the event that gets us. It's our repetitive story about the event that gets us. Byron Katie says it, life is kinder than we are to ourselves. Life happens once, and we hit
Wow.
ourselves over the head with the same story of it 1,000 times.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so who's the perpetrator now?
Mm.
Okay. And so she wrote down, he made me think we needed to get married. And she was upset because projections create a victim and a villain mental imagery. Okay. They need to respect me.
Mm.
Oh, okay. What kind of picture does that make? A scary one, a not fun one. Okay. Again, they're doing something to me. And I asked her, I said, who thinks your thoughts,
Mm.
him or you? I makes things real simple. I am a simple guy. That's the
Mhm.
only way I like stuff. Complicated I'm not smart enough for it. Okay. Don't want it. Don't want anything to do with it. Give me simple and smooth and clean and clear.
Mhm.
Who thinks your thoughts, him or you? Well, me, I guess. Take out the guess. Me. Who feels your feelings, him or you? Who who creates your feelings? Take your pick. Me. Okay. He made me think we needed to get married. Take out the he and put in I.
Mhm.
Because what that does is it gets him out of the picture completely, which is what she needed. She needed some relief of that relentless mental movie of of things going bad and her not being smart enough and capable enough to create a healthy relationship, because that's what she saw with her parents.
Mhm.
And she would never get down to the nuts and bolts of things if she stayed at that surface level
Mhm.
of he did that to me, or it doesn't matter, she did that to me. And when she went from he made me think we needed to get married to I made me think we needed to get married, the power got taken back, as people like to say. Oh, well,
Mhm.
yeah, yes, I am the one at the end of the day that said we needed to get married to myself. He asked me to get married, and he didn't say yes for me. It's funny when we start to like poke holes in it. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's funny and it's insane. One of my favorites. I talk about this a lot. Talk about this guy a lot. I'd like to meet him again. I'm walking down Venice Boardwalk, and I've got I know we got started a little bit past our scheduled time. I've got about 6 minutes.
Okay.
Walking down Venice Beach Boardwalk. You ever been there, by the way?
I have actually, yeah.
How good of a place is that for people watching?
The best, one of the best,
World
world class.
class.
Yeah.
World class. I lived there for a year. I've
Mhm.
walked that boardwalk many times. I'm walking down the boardwalk and I pass this guy with a sign that says, well, I passed this guy and I had if I had my A plus game on, I would have bought the sign and laminated it and I'd be waving it around right now. I had my A minus game hat on. So I back up and I turn and look at him and he's holding a sign. I said, hey, dude, I'll give you $1 if I can take a picture of you and your son. And he goes, yeah, of course. Click. He's holding a sign and it says, this guy's 23, 24. Student loans ruined my life. $6,000 in debt, top right-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner, anything helps.
Mm.
You know anybody that's ever been to college or university?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This day and age, and this was like 4 or 5 years ago, and that day and age,
Mhm.
$6,000 ain't all that much. You know what $6,000 is? That's a semester.
Mm.
That's a semester at an in-state school. And
Yeah.
most of the time, when you go to a school for one semester and you don't go back, that's because you did a little too much party.
I see.
And by the looks of the guy, that's what I would wager. So most likely, he went to school and lived it up, flunked out, and now is holding a sign on the side of the boardwalk saying $6,000 in debt. No, student loans ruined my life. $6,000 in debt. Anything helps. And I go, student loans ruined your life, huh? Because remember, he's 23. The next 40 years are just in the bank, in the trash can. Ruined. Past tense. Why even try? Let's just throw in the towel.
Mm.
And then the dude just kept on going, because that's what happens when we buy into a story like that. It perpetuates. You've heard of thought trains. We just keep on going. Yeah, my dad, that asshole, makes $78,000 a year, and he won't even help me out at all. Venom,
Mm.
venom. Student
Dangerous.
loan,
Hmm.
yeah, oh yeah. Student loans ruined my life, as opposed to
Mm.
I took out a student loan and went to school and binge drank, and
Mm.
and um uh now I have to pay that back. He's not even talking about paying it back. He's just cooked. Student loans steamrolled him. It's like it jumped out from behind a dumpster and mugged him and just ran off laughing. He had nothing to do with that situation.
Mm.
That's what that boils down to at its essence. And because he
Mm.
doesn't have anything to do with that situation, he can't have anything to do with remediating that situation.
Interesting.
What a
Hmm.
what a lovely little story to buy into.
It's amazing, man, how powerful these stories are and how they can work for us or against us.
It's everything.
And yeah, I just want to thank you, Mark, for coming on and sharing this message with us. And I want to
My pleasure.
invite anyone who's not familiar with your work to check you out because I really enjoyed your program, Procabulary.
Mm.
So yeah, I just want people to see it and check it out and see if it is something that resonates with them. And I
Please
know
do.
that
Please do. A lot of things, you'll
mhm,
unravel all kinds of interesting things
yes,
with it.
yes, and I know that you're short on time. That we only have a couple minutes left. And just before you head out, I wanted to ask because you've done so many podcasts, so many interviews. Is there something you wish that people more frequently asked you about? Like, if only this idea of if only they would have asked me about this, like, there's so much gold in this, but I never talk about that.
You're asking very good questions, and the answer is no, because
Mm.
I take the conversation where the conversation needs to be taken by
Mm.
me, because there's only one thing there's only one thing that I am the thing that I am by far. There's this conversation about language, and then there's everything else.
Mm.
I am qualified to have a conversation about this. So this is the only thing I talk about. And my
It's a
business partner, Mike Bledsoe, calls me a one-trick pony. And the day he said that, I smiled and laughed and said, "Sweet, I'm doing a good job."
yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, you are. And yeah, thank you for coming on, Mark. I hope to remain in contact and would love to talk to you
Yes,
again sometime.
please.
There's so much more to discuss. And yeah, I just want to thank you for your time and
You're very welcome.
we'll be in
Thank you for
touch.
your audience for listening too. Have a happy holidays, everybody.
Oh, well, thank you, Mark. See you later, brother.
Cheers.
Cheers.